My name is Tabitha Schneider, and I'll tell you a little bit about why I'm running for mayor and also a little bit about myself. So I grew up in the Midwest, so I come to Reno with a lot of Midwest values. I moved here in 2006 originally, and I've spent about 12 of the last 14 years here. I am currently the owner and one of the founders of Reno Hive Co-working and Incubation Space. And we have about 125 businesses incubating in our space. And that's exciting because we have everything from UNR students who are trying their first hand at their very first business, all the way up to two gentlemen who started incubating a few years ago. And they've grown to over 160 global employees, and their business is now valued at $1.5 billion. While I'm successful today, things weren't always that way. I have a daughter who is 30, I have a grandson who is 9, and they're the love of my life. But when I was pregnant with my daughter's father left when I was 7 months pregnant. So I ended up, as often many people do, on welfare. And I didn't want to stay in that system, so I knew that the only way out of that system was to go and get an education. So I bootstrapped it, finished my degree in a few years, and went on to get into real estate. So I've spent 35 years in real estate development. And then when the last downturn of the market came, I went back to school again and decided to go back and get an MBA. Now, how does all that wrap into being mayor? I stand for housing here in Reno. You've heard a few candidates talk about the housing crisis. We have a housing crisis here. The current rents of, starting a one-bedroom apartment, $1,700 to $2,000, that is not sustainable. So I feel like the real estate experience that I have, and I've also traveled extensively, I've seen a lot of things work in other cities that we're not implementing here in Reno. I'll just give you one quick example. Auxiliary units, and oftentimes you hear them called mother-in-law units. We don't really have anything in code right now that could fast-track auxiliary units in someone's yard. And I feel that's really important because it works in other cities, and it gives people an opportunity to rent a smaller unit for, let's say, $800 to $1,000 a month. And then on the flip side, it also gives people an opportunity who maybe wouldn't have qualified for a mortgage to now have an additional revenue stream, and now they qualified to buy a house that they couldn't get without that additional revenue stream. That's just one of many ideas I have that I've seen work in other cities.
Thank you.
I stand for housing. Second. Hello again. So again, since I spent 35 years in real estate development, I feel like I can collaborate and work well with the developers that are in town. We have a lot of developers that want to build, and they have challenging times working with the current city council to get things done. So I feel like I can bring that leadership and the collaboration that we need to work between the community, within our master plan, with the developers to get things done. I agree with Judy. I think that we need to, when we're working with the developers, that we need to have a certain amount of units set aside for low-income housing. I've seen that work really well in cities like Portland and Sacramento. Sacramento did something very interesting where they built some artist lofts, and they took a certain percentage, and the artists can present their portfolios, and then they can live there for a couple $100s a month instead of a couple thousand. And the rest of the higher priced units that are slightly above market rent supplement the artists to live there. My grandmother, when this was back in Ohio many years ago, but she was living on Social Security, $700, $800 a month. And I know when I go out and I talk to the homeless folks on the street, the unhoused, a lot of them do have incomes. They have $700 or $800 a month, and they were living in a lot of the hotel units that have been torn down here in Reno. We've torn down over 800 motel units in the city, and we have no other displacement plan for the people that were living in those units, which is a disgrace. And so we really have to work with the developers, the community, and amongst the city council, and get rid of the dissent going on in the city council to get things done. So that, auxiliary units, I have about 25 other ideas. So I would invite you to follow me on Facebook if you can, Tabitha for Mayor, or you can go to my website, tabithaformayor.com, and look and see all the issues I plan to tackle when I get elected. Thank you. Talking about growth and sustainability, one of the things that need to happen in the city is, first of all, we need some transparency. We have a real lack of transparency going on. We also, the city used to have a grant writer a long time ago, and I know I've heard a few people mention a few times, there's a lot of federal monies out there right now and a lot of state monies we're not taking advantage of because we don't have a great grant writer on staff. I just read that in the state of Nevada, there's $500 million coming down the pipeline for affordable housing. So we need to be able to grab our share of that money. So to have a sustainable city, you need to be able to have affordable housing, which I have a plan to manage. You need to have transparency, and you need to be a city council, a mayor that's working for all the people, not a few zip codes, not a few developers, not a few casinos. I want to be the mayor for every single person in this room, every single person on the street. I want to be your voice, and I want to work together and collaborate to make sure that moving forward, you know, we're looking into the future and seeing what we need to do today to have smart growth in the city. I'm glad Judy also brought up about safety, because we need to look forward, you know, with the traffic and everything. We need to look forward and work with the engineers and NDOT and make sure that our roads can manage the capacity so we're not sitting in line for hours when we're in the spaghetti bowl. So, you know, I plan on bringing that and tackling a lot of other issues once I become mayor. Thank you. I've got a lot of ideas that should be introduced to the legislature. So one idea that I have would be to have broadband for all. I have another day job, so I travel to California a few days a week, and I work with a company that's a public company, and we are working on a large broadband project right now. So broadband basically manages the capacity. A long time ago when cell phone service started, you saw big towers go up and that would do coverage. You would get the coverage map if you went to T-Mobile or Verizon to see if you actually had coverage in your area. And now the name of the game in probably the next 10 years in wireless is broadband. And that manages the capacity, because now we all have cell phones that have become our TVs, our computers, and we need capacity. And so I think a city that is wired well has sustainability. If a business is thinking about coming into an area, if you don't have broadband, you can't work. So we need more fiber laid down in the city. So I think I would propose something to the legislature related to broadband, first of all. I'm torn on a couple things here on the back end, but I think Jenny's kind of hinting that we have a weak mayor system. And so you can't pass anything significant in Reno because it has to go back to the state legislature. So I think I would propose that we bring the power back to the city and put that back in the people and spend our tax dollars back in Reno and have the ability to do that efficiently and have a strong mayor system instead of a weak mayor system. So those are the two things I pick. Thank you. I'm Tabitha, and I always knew I would run for office at some point in time in my life. And the reason I'm running now is because moving back to Reno in 2019 and opening my business, right after we opened our business, COVID hit. And we had zero communication after the city shut down and zero leadership. I don't know how many people in this audience and online feel that we need new leadership, but we do. And I hope that you'll consider me to be that leader. I feel that my experience in real estate development will allow me to continue to work with the developers and again, City Council to really, truly bring affordable housing to this community. Not talk about it for another 10 years. I look at the debates from 2018, we're still talking about the things they said they were gonna do in 2018. And I bet if I watched the debates from 2012, they were still talking about what they were gonna do. I wanna do it. I don't want to be another politician up here, and in 4 years, we're still talking about what we think we're gonna do. We've been living in really divisive times, especially the last four to 6 years. I wanna bring Reno together. We might not always see eye to eye at the end of the day, but I promise I'll always vote in the best interest of this community. And I'll always be approachable, and I'll listen to what you guys feel are the issues and also the solutions. So with that said, I guess I'll be the last person to speak and hand this back over to Connie Ray. Thank you guys for coming tonight. I hope you'll consider me for your next mayor. And again, follow me on Facebook and my website, Tabitha for Mayor. Thank you guys.